is lacking.
Just a reminder, you're listening to Meet the Media on The Voice of Russia with Scott Craig. This week, I'm discussing the upcoming Russian presidential election with my guests, Alexander Smotrov, Viktor Balagadde, and Margarita Stewart. Another interesting point. I mean, the perception of Putin, the man, because, as you know, there was this week this alleged assassination plot which Russian and Ukrainian special forces claim that they uncovered. There have been a couple of arrests, apparent confessions on national television and so on. But I was struck by something that Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov said in response to, there was some criticism that perhaps this plot was a little convenient, perhaps it was released as a sort of election stunt and so on. And he responded to those suggestions and actually said that to imply so was blasphemous, which I thought was a very interesting choice of words. I mean, are we looking essentially at Putin kind of being almost culturally elevated to some kind of quasi-father of the nation status?
I think the choice of the word wasn't too. Maybe probably he said that it's the first from his heart, but I don't think that's the word what he chose. He would pronounce. But I agree with him that assumption that the plot was no more than smart political move is complete senseless. Just if you just suppose that was political move before election, it would be very unprofessional and pretty much expensive thing, because let's not forget all things happen in Ukraine, so on territory of a sovereign country. And it was involved Ukraine media, Ukraine police forces, Ukraine state organizations, and there's other Ukraine's state persons. So they would not do anything like that for Russia just for thank you. So that could be a very expensive thing. And don't forget that Russia and Ukraine now they are not best friends. So I just don't see that Ukraine would take part of such a notorious deception, and I don't see that anyone in Russia, on the Russian side, would give to Ukraine such a trump card.
Well, I don't know. I don't really agree with what Margarita is saying here, because I think we shouldn't forget that Yanukovych is who's the protection man who protects Yanukovych, and the man who put him in that chair was Mr. Putin. And let's remember the campaign when Yanukovych was running for presidency together with Mr. Yushchenko. And in the course of, I think, 6 months, Mr. Putin visited Ukraine and had photo sessions together next to Yanukovych, despite the big difference in height, for more than 60 times, I think. And he was in Ukraine almost every month or every second month. He was there on the Black Sea taking photographs together with Yanukovych when Yanukovych was not a president and he was just an official candidate for presidency, just trying to show that Kremlin, Moscow and Russia is supporting Yanukovych. Considering that Ukraine is a divided country, one side is on Russian side, another side is for the Ukrainian independence and European membership. So Yanukovych depends on Kremlin, and I'm not saying that this plot is fake or it was not fake. Let's talk about the choice of voice, the choice of words which you've mentioned by Mr. Peskov. In Russian language, there are two words for blasphemy. There is one which is bogохульство, and there is another one which is кощунство. So Mr. Peskov used кощунство, which means something very inhumane. Bogохульство, which is more like blasphemy. Well, I don't know. My English is not my native language, but bogохульство is when you are trying to abuse someone what is very sacred to you, something what is very holy to you. So that's when you can kind of implement that bogохульство is like Mr. Putin is like a god or something. But Peskov used кощунство, which is just very inhumane.
So you don't think we should read too much into the choice of words?
Yes, I don't think so. And I understand Mr. Peskov very well. You can never say for 100% that this is all fake, that plot was fake. And if you have at least 1% doubt, I think it is not very kind of I mean, you have a right, of course, of expressing your doubts about everything, but you cannot say for certain that this was fake. Though to me personally, when I was looking at the videos of these two young men which were arrested and to their confessions, for me it looked all very like a mock. Everything was very fake, especially considering that they are very inexperienced people. You can see by their faces and by their age that these are not professional killers or something like that. They are very inexperienced young men who came from Dubai, and I can hardly imagine if somebody is seriously trying to assassinate Mr. Putin, who would be hiring such an experienced man. And if they do hire such an experienced people, they would never tell them that they are there to assassinate Putin. You will be given the name of your target at 2 hours before the assassination. You would never say 2 months in advance, especially when the man is still in a foreign territory, not on the territory of Russia, that he's there to kill and prepare a killing of Putin. So that all looks a bit fake.
But what's the point? Actually, so what's the point? We just spoke with us all together. That's the Putin. His way to presidency, it is almost sure. So to do something like this, what is the point?
That's an interesting point. That basically, as a political stunt, it's actually not necessary because he is in no danger of losing the election.
In one way, it's not necessary, but you always have to be on the safe side, because look what happened in the elections in December. Everybody was sure that everything will go on smoothly. Единая Россия will come in, the United Russia will win all the votes and so on. No one expected so many crowds to come out in the capital and protest about the result of elections. So here, and this kind of a trick has been used many, many, many times. And of course, some old ladies and old men who really genuinely love Mr. Putin, and then 1 week before the elections they hear that somebody is trying to kill their president, obviously they'll make 100% sure that they'll go on Sunday and vote for Mr. Putin. So this is a very common political trick which was used in Obama's campaign. I'm not saying it is a trick, but if it is, this is something which has been used many, many, many times before.
But what was striking for me, actually, two things. The first one, that it was revealed to the media, to the state media in advance, and it took them 10 days to prepare the TV coverage of the whole story for the first channel. And again, the fact so many people were involved and it hasn't leaked shows indirectly at least the control over the media, especially over the broadcast media that still exists in Russia.
We're coming up to the end of the program, but just to remind our listeners, the Russian presidential election is taking place this Sunday, and we will of course have full coverage for you. Just before we go though, I did want to ask you all, as usual, just for something else that you've had your eye on, another story that you've had your eye on this week. Viktor, perhaps you could begin.
Well, the news which I wanted to mention today was is not news. It's news already, but it hasn't been in the media yet. I'm not sure whether it will get into the media today, but probably Mr. Chichevarkin will put some videos on his blog, and it might spread around the papers or internet sites. It's about a certain meeting which happened today at 12 o'clock in front of the American Embassy in London. A certain family, a gentleman actually, whose name is Nikolai Revenka, for the last month was trying to organize a meeting in front of American Embassy in support of Mr. Putin, asking Americans not to involve into Russian elections. And obviously, the fact that he organized the meeting at 12 o'clock on working day, on Thursday, looks like the quantity of people who would come was not on his agenda. At least it was not his priority. So it's only him, his wife, and 2 of his kids who turned up for the meeting. He had a loudspeaker, and he was speaking there, addressing the American embassy, saying that Americans should stay out of the Russian policy, and so on and so on. And Mr. Chichevarkin turned up on the meeting, and he was taking everything on video. So hopefully this will all go online today in the evening. And the reason why I'm bringing up this story is that I just want to highlight that there is a huge chunk of the Russian society which genuinely supports Mr. Putin. Actually, why I'm saying that is because one of the main questions of few journalists which were present on that meeting was whether anyone is paying to Mr. Revenka for doing this kind of action. And of course, he was saying not. And even Mr. Chichevarkin, who has a very suspicious mind, at the end said that probably this gentleman came out in front of the American embassy very genuinely, without any money, and nobody is really forcing him to do that. So and I think Mr. Revenka is actually a representative of that huge part of the Russian society who genuinely supports Mr. Putin, no matter whether they are zombies or not zombies. You can call them differently, but at the moment they love their leader, they like their president, and there is no surprise that Mr. Putin will win these elections.
Just a reminder, you're listening to Meet the Media on the Voice of Russia with Scott Craig. This week, I'm discussing the upcoming Russian presidential election with my guests, Alexander Smotrov, Viktor Balagadde, and Margarita Stewart. Alexander, how about you?
What I was seeing on the way to the studio today was a big window of Russian bookshop at Waterstones, and it will be unveiled tonight at a private reception and on Saturday for general public. And again, it offers so many different books in Russian, on all aspects, and it's like representing the whole spectrum of interest. And again, there will be at least 3 books on Putin in this shop. 3 different books were published just in the wake before the elections, and again it just reiterates the interest both Russian domestic audience and the foreign audience still has in Mr. Putin and his character, both as a politician and a man.
We all know the Scottish government intends to hold referendum on the issue of independence from the United Kingdom in the autumn of 2014. But probably even Mr. Alex Salmond didn't dream of this, that his plan for referendum that affects the world. Particularly one, or let's say 2 countries that are 1,000 miles from Scotland, and plan of Scottish referendum surprisingly affects the best brains in Armenia. Karen Bikarian, director of Yerevan Center of European Integration, said if Scotland gets back to its independence, this will stimulate parade of liberation around the world. Because if we have a Scottish Premier Minister would know what his action affects the rest of the world, because and Armenia, Azerbaijan are trying for the last decade, I think, to make referendum about Nagorno-Karabakh. But only what I don't know why they're waiting for Scotland.
I'm afraid we're out of time, so we'll have to leave it there. And I look forward to talking to each of you again, obviously, about the results of the election. And again, just to remind our listeners that we will have full coverage on The Voice of Russia. But my thanks this week to my guests, Alexander Smotrov, Margarita Stewart, and Viktor Balagadde. You're listening to The Voice of Russia. Stay with us.